All right, hello everyone. I'm Anthony Smith. I'm doing an interview today with EN1 SWCC retired Bill Redmond, who's also known as AKA Master Splinter. And this is titled interview number 2. We're talking about operator syndrome, traumatic brain injury, and major orthopedic injuries. So here is Bill Redmond.
Bill Redmond, aka Master Splinter. That's what they called me when I was an instructor. I was in SWCC since 1986 to 2002, so that's quite a long term to be in a boat. I did several deployments. I've been around the world twice, but prior to that was on a ship for 4 years until I decided to go SWCC in '86. I was a 9533 originally, then grandfathered in, went to class 2 as a SWCC, was part of the cadre that actually started the program. I know it's changed quite a bit, and I realize you were.
All right, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Interview number 2 was conducted over Facebook video chat. Still a little difficulties with it. Bill answered questions from the following questionnaire formats and gave permission to produce this presentation and share it openly. So we used the operator syndrome questionnaire, the GAD-7 questionnaire with general anxiety, PCL-5 questionnaire for PTSD, PHQ-9 general health questionnaire, and then the NSI, which is a neural behavioral symptoms inventory, and then the SWCC background questionnaire. Bill was in the Navy, United States Navy, for 20 years. Out of that 20 years, he was in the Special Warfare boat community as a SWCC operator for 16 years. His last couple of years was on medical hold for severe lumbar issues. He was in SWCC Class 2. He graduated in 1991. He did 6+ deployments as a SWCC operator. Probably more than that, but with his memory the way it was kind of difficult to ascertain. Kind of like the same way all of us are. He served at SBU 11, SBU 12, at NSWC, the Spec War Center, as an instructor. NSW Unit 1, both in Guam and the Philippines, and some forward deployed locations as well. He worked on Sea Foxes, PBs, HSBs, which you can see a picture there, jumping out of the water. And just imagine 70 miles an hour and that 15-foot drop when you hit that wave or hit the water, what it's going to feel like. So do that on a continual basis, and you end up breaking bones, and bones break. I'm sure brain tissue breaks as well. So a lot of TBI stuff. He was also on the Mark V's 24-foot ribs and the 10-meter ribs. He did 18,000 plus hours on SWCC fast boats. He has an estimated greater than 2.2 million full body wave impacts or full body impacts on waves, creating whiplash effect and potentially causing mild traumatic brain injury. Essentially, we're talking about microconcussions. Navy SWCC is a special class of elite naval warriors who have been a decisive force behind some of America's most important secret missions. Special boat operations have unique and often deadly challenges due to the combination of operating powerful, sophisticated machines designed for speed and stealth in some of the planet's most inhospitable environments. The average SWCC operator experiences mTBI and major orthopedic injuries over the course of their career. In peacetime and war, Naval Special Warfare conducts missions in over 70 countries, 365 days a year. The sum of SWCC injury does not accumulate until the operator retires. It's important to mention operator syndrome because it's connected to every SWCC operator. and every SOF person for that matter. There is a nexus of operator syndrome for special warfare boat operators, and you're going to see that nexus of symptoms as we kind of go through this. And quickly, operator syndrome was termed by Dr. Christopher Frew. There's a DOI link to the literature if you want to grab it and read it if you haven't seen it. Operator syndrome is a nexus of psychiatric illnesses and disorders along with chronic orthopedic injuries. Every SOF operator group across every branch of the military has to contend with operator syndrome and the nexus of symptoms that does include special warfare boat operators. Here's a list of operator syndrome symptoms common among all operators in SOF forces. The ones highlighted in red are the ones that Bill is actually dealing with on a daily basis. Traumatic brain injury, endocrine dysfunction, sleep disturbance, obstructive sleep apnea, chronic joint pain, back pain, orthopedic problems and headaches, depression and suicide, PTSD, anger, worry, rumination, and stress reactivity, problems with sexual health and intimacy, ED, things like that, being on guard, hypervigilant, memory, concentration, and cognitive impairments, vestibular impairments, and challenges of the transition from military to civilian life. Okay, chronic comorbidities for Bill Redmond due to SWCC boat operations. One of the purposes of all of these interviews that I'm doing is to show the end results of SWCC boat operations. We all joined the SWCC community in our 20s and our 30s. We did 15, 20 years in the community, and then 20 years post service and post trauma. We're in our 50s and our 60s, and then we have this massive accumulation of injury that we deal with on a continual basis. So Bill has L3 through L5 fractures that happened while he was active duty. He eventually ended up getting hardware infusion in that area, and of course he has lumbar spinal pain as a result. He has C5 and C6 degeneration, same thing I have, and as a result he has a lot of pain in his neck. T6 and T7 area degeneration, typical with a SWCC guy. He has subcortical cortical dementia, which is a very significant diagnosis. He has a diagnosis of TBI, multiple concussion, neurocognitive disorder, PTSD, central processing disorder, depression. All of these things came from his TBI evaluation at Tulane. He has several different symptoms within endocrine dysfunction, ocular motor dysfunction, headaches, and post-concussion syndrome, and chronic kidney disease. Bill has arthritis and joint pain in all of his joints, dual hip arthritis, diabetes type 2, chronic pain and headaches, anger and irritability, hypervigilant, severe memory loss, concentration issues, hearing issues, dizziness, tinnitus, and loss of balance and coordination, which requires a service dog to help him with his balance and coordination. Bill also has mental fatigue, moderate sleep disturbance, diagnosis of severe sleep apnea. He uses a CPAP machine. He has some feelings of guilt, grief, loss in the tribe, moderate sensitivity to noise, numbness in his lower extremities, severe executive dysfunction, mild ED, high anxiety, night terrors, fights in his sleep, severe neuropathy in his legs. He has a service dog with a harness, acts as a cane and as a guide, right elbow debridement, and severe irritability and anger. Okay, this slide depicts some symptoms that Bill experienced while operating high-speed SWCC boats. So he had fatigue during wave pounding, very common with all SWCC operators. Urinated blood during wave pounding, very common with all SWCC operators, because the G-forces are very significant when the boat hits a wave or falls into a trough. Most of us that I know of have experienced urinating blood. Dizziness due to wave pounding, absolutely. Experienced whiplash due to wave pounding. Confusion, lack of focus and concentration due to wave pounding. He experienced whole body wave pounding and whiplash at speeds of 65 miles an hour. Every SWCC, every SWCC, every SWCC. Experienced wave pounding in seas above 10 feet. Yeah, we all got out there in 15-foot seas many times. The whole purpose of this presentation and doing interviews with retired SWCC guys is to show the aftermath effect of riding boats for 10, 15, 20 years as SWCC operators, and then 20 years post service. We are in our 50s and our 60s, and we have all these major mTBI symptoms and all these extremely difficult and chronic orthopedic injuries. Now, Spec War has done several studies on the boats and wave pounding and a lot of the things that I'm talking about. Unfortunately, all of those studies were done on active duty operators in their 30s, in their 40s, with an average of 7 to 10 years of SWCC service or active duty service. And I remember when I was 30, I was in the best shape of my life. I was doing the job as a SWCC operator, and we were out there every day pounding these waves, whole body wave pounding, taking significant G-forces, and we just walked it off. We were dazed, we were confused, we had fatigue, we had all the symptoms, but the next day we just got up and went and did it again like nothing ever happened, because we were young, we were in great shape. If you fast forward 20 years, which is what I'm doing, and you look at guys that are in their mid-50s and early and mid-60s, the consequences are devastating. You cannot look at this group of individuals with all of these major TBI symptoms and all of these major orthopedic injuries. You can't look at them and go, it's not from the boats, unless you're just an idiot. Traumatic brain injury for Bill Redmond. The average SWCC operator logs 3,000 hours of boat time per deployment cycle. Roche's 1994 seminal study conducted underway studies on NSW fast boats for a period of 6 days, over a period of 36 hours, which totaled 8,610 wave impacts ranging from 2 to 25 G-forces in that time frame. Of the 8,610 wave impacts, 4,496 impacts ranged above 5 Gs. So, well over 4,000 5G and greater impacts in 36 hours equals 124 significant whiplash events in an hour. These are significant enough impacts to cause whiplash and traumatic brain injury. The average SWCC operator endures 124 whiplash events in an hour operating fast boats. Definitely a problem. The average SWCC operator possibly endures 374,640 significant G-force impacts from wave pounding on SWCC boats in one deployment cycle. Just taking those numbers and multiplying. So if you can possibly get over 300,000 significant impacts in one deployment cycle, and you multiply that by 6 or more, because we're not 100% sure what Bill actually did, then you're looking at 2.2 million significant full body impacts from wave slamming on SWCC fast boats that cause disastrous long-term effects of chronic orthopedic injury, whiplash, and dementia, which in the case of Bill, he has dementia. This is a summary of operator syndrome and all the associated symptoms of TBI and major orthopedic injuries for EN1 SWCC Bill Redmond. Etymologically speaking, Bill is a 62-year-old retired SWCC operator. This is 2022. With 16 years of SWCC boat service, 6+ SWCC deployment cycles, including 18,000 hours of SWCC boat time, causing an estimated over 2.2 million significant full body impacts while weight pounding on SWCC fast boats. Bill has over 17 symptoms of mTBI and a nexus of operator syndrome symptoms. Bill states he endured whiplash, weight pounding at significant G-forces, and urinated blood on many occasions, and also had blackouts from full body weight pounding exposure. Bill stated most of his symptoms started several years ago and significantly impede his quality of life. Long-term effects of mTBI, major orthopedic injuries, are debilitating for SWCC operators like Bill. Bill has a 100% disability rating from the VA, but nothing associated with traumatic brain injury. It is a tragedy that SWCC operators like Bill, who suffered severe brain trauma from SWCC fast boats, has no support from the DoD entities, does not have proper long-term diagnosis or treatment, or rating for debilitating TBI injury. Until DON and DoD do research on retired SWCC operators suffering from long-term mTBI and major orthopedic injury, thousands more of SWCC operators will suffer. Until Congress passes law to make mTBI and major orthopedic injury presumptive for SWCC with the VA, thousands more will suffer and go untreated. Objectives of this presentation: to provide awareness and help DoD, SOCOM, NSW, the VA, and other research groups understand the research gap that exists. There are thousands of retired SWCC operators ages 50 and up who are suffering long-term effects of mTBI and major orthopedic injury, yet no study exists on this peer group. These interviews will serve as an online archive for all SWCC operators to draw information for VA claims. There are thousands of SWCC operators who need long-term care for TBI and just don't have it.